Hello, everybody in UK Crime Bookland. I'm here to close Halloween with Matt Weslowski and talk about his latest 6 stories book, Deity. Hi, Matt.
Hello, and many apologies for the lateness. We've had some Halloween gremlins to battle with.
Gremlins
but it's nice
do
to see you,
appear
Alex.
occasionally. Yeah.
And
Nice
happy
to see
Halloween.
you. Yeah. I've spent since last January reading your books, but if someone, if lots of people in the group may not have heard of the summary of your plot yet, so if you could start by summarising the plot for Deity for us.
Okay, so the whole 6 stories series is basically a fictional true crime podcast, the transcriptions of, hosted by this elusive internet journalist called Scott King. Each book is a separate cold case, so they all stand alone. And the latest in the series, Deity, which I'll try and put in front of the camera, is all about a fallen rock star. So we have this enigmatic superstar, pop star called Zach Crystal, who was found dead from a fire in his mansion in the middle of a forest in Scotland. But allegations start coming out about Crystal and his relationships with young teenagers. And Scott King speaks to 6 different people involved with Crystal to find out what really happened.
What was the idea that made you decide to start a podcast as a plot? Because before you did it, nobody else seemed to do that. And now there's quite a few people that seem to like the idea afterwards.
Well, yes. It came about as a sort of accident. It was. I'm not really a crime reader, and I never have been. I'm more of a horror guy. And someone put me onto the Serial podcast, and I listened to it and loved it and became completely immersed in it. And I thought, what an interesting way of telling a story. So I thought, well, maybe this could work as a book. So I wrote 6 stories, first in the series, really quickly as a bit of an experiment. I never thought anything would really happen with it. And then I entered a competition. Someone asked me to enter a competition about crime, and I pitched 6 stories to a panel, and Karen Sullivan picked it up, and as they say, the rest is history.
In Deity, you've changed the way you've constructed the story, because you've included somebody else besides Scott as well. Was that a challenge?
Yeah, it's always a challenge to write other characters, and it's always a challenge. I feel like with every book, I have to kind of up the ante a little bit. So I have to kind of challenge myself. If I just wrote the same book 6 times, it would just it would become formulaic. So I always want to excite myself when I'm writing it. And I feel like if I'm a reader, I want something more. So that's kind of where that comes from, that idea of like putting other people in and making more characters and try and make them more immersive, you know?
Yeah, because the last 3 books, everyone's been different from the previous one, because you did video blogging in Beast. Because putting that down as a audio file on an audio book must have been hard to describe the videos, because you're having to do a lot of description to tell the audience what's there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big challenge of it. You can't kind of create your world by describing it as an omnipotent narrator, I suppose. But what you can do is you look at different ways of how to do that. So I'll use little bits of Scott King's description of where he is. But also what that does is that allows the reader to then create what's going on in their head. So every reader will have a different background to what's going on.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to read all 5 stories so quickly, because I'm used to reading people in like only 1 or 2. It's very rare that I managed to read all 5 books back to back so quickly. When you were writing the 3rd one and you decided to include Scott's backstory, was there any influences that you read from other people to like Because backstory is always key in crime, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah. No, the backstory of Scott King came as I was writing it. I wanted to write a book about sort of these narcissistic, abusive people. After I put an author's note in it talking about the people I'd talked to who met real monsters, and there are real monsters out there. There are bad, terrible people, and this book is about those sort of people, coercive, controlling sort of people. And Scott's backstory popped in there as an idea whilst I was writing it. And it's probably the shortest in the series, but it became the most serious. Serious for Scott, serious for the protagonist, and probably the most serious one I've written, I think. So all those things kind of came together in a kind of horrible or wonderful mess.
When I was reading Deity, I was pleased to note that you brought a character back. It's the first time you've done it, so I was really intrigued as to why you'd done that.
You know what? He's one of my favorite characters, and I kind of don't want to spoil it. Let's just say the character was influenced by a bit of a hero of mine who, during the writing of Deity, stopped very abruptly being a bit of a hero of mine, and that changed how I wrote him, actually. And I made him a better person. I kind of made him an ideal. But no, he was always one of my favorite characters in the series. And wonderfully, I traveled down to Oxford to read his character for ISIS audio. So when you listen to the audiobook, that's me as that character, which was great
brilliant.
fun.
Yeah. Because I know you're a big fan of audio yourself. You said that in previous interviews. What audiobooks do you listen to?
So I'm listening to The Whistling at the minute, which is kind of popped up and is everywhere at the moment. It's a wonderfully sort of traditional ghost story in that sort of sense. With audiobooks, I treat them exactly the same as just reading normal books. I read a hell of a lot, but audiobooks allow me to do other things, so I can clean my house whilst listening to a book. So at the minute, I'm on a real horror binge, and I'm always searching for that elusive book that's going to really frighten me, which I haven't been genuinely frightened by a book for quite a while, and I'm still on the hunt. So any recommendations, please throw them this way.
Well, to be frank with everybody, the only horror I generally read has been yours and CJ Tudor. So if the recommendation is likely to be the other way.
Well, I can give you one straight away if you want to be scared. I can give you the book that frightened me, that kind of one of the big ones that got me into horror, and it's The Amityville Horror by Jay Anson, and it's the book that spawned all the movies and all the controversy and that sort of thing. And it may not be real, it may be all a big lie, but there's that idea that maybe it's true as well. And I kind of subscribe to that idea. But I picked that book up, and I've still got my copy. I picked it up when I was about 12 years old in a charity shop, and it was 10p or something like that. And I read it, and man, it kept me awake for about a week. And I thought, and all my life, all my writing career, I want to do that to people. And I've wanted to write something as frightening as that.
You've got a lot of influences that you've used themes in the books. Like in Beast, there was a vampire, and in Deity, there's death omens. So when you're looking at a theme that might include horror, where do you get those ideas from, and why did you choose those?
So me and my girlfriend, we have this joke that whenever I'm about to write a 6 stories book, we roll a dice. One dice is the true crime, the other dice is the paranormal aspect. And so we might get, I don't know, mummies and a serial killer. but it's not it's not like that. What tends to happen is I'm very into the paranormal. I always have been. I'm very into folklore and mythology. So it tends to be whatever I'm interested in at the time. So when I was writing Beast, I was reading a lot about vampires. And I thought, well, I've always wanted to try and write a vampire novel, but I never thought I was really good enough. I think with a vampire novel, you really have to push. The bar is set so high with vampire novels. This one, The Death Omen, I had a book, and I'm sure you'll know, it's the Usborne Book of Monsters I had when I was a kid, right? So in there's a drawing of a creature called a black shuck, which is a black dog that people see. And it's from folklore all over the United Kingdom. I think from Devon, that sort of area, all the way up to Scotland, that's a death omen that you see. If you see this black dog, you know, it means you're going to die. And it's been used everywhere. Harry Potter, the Grimm, that sort of thing. And I just really liked it. And I it's really hard to say. These things, sometimes they don't often work. Sometimes I'll write a draft of a 6 stories novel, and then I'll go through the editing process, having to cut out a great deal of folklore because it just doesn't stick. But the Death Omen stuck, the vampires stuck, and in the next one, the other thing is stuck as well.
Oh, cool! What is it about woods that you like? Because you've used it in 3 of your 5 novels. Yeah,
absolutely. I make no apologies for using woods. The woods are very special places to me. I live in Newcastle upon Tyne, which you might think is like just sort of a big city, but I drove 10 minutes outside the city centre today, and you're in the countryside, and that's what's beautiful about living here. And ever since I was a little kid, I've always been taken to the woods. There's some really beautiful woodland around here, and I've always felt an affinity for the woods. It's been part of my life since I was growing up. And I think when you're writing, you want to use things that are important to you, because then you can write with that same passion. I took my son, who's 10, to the woods. I've been taking him to the woods since he was a little baby. And I took him with his friend to the woods. And it was wonderful watching them, you know, no screens, nothing like that, just charging around the forest, finding sticks. They both ended up jumping in a river on purpose, so we had to take them home, but they were having a great time, and the woods mean a hell of a lot to me, so I will use them. Was your son an influence for book 3? Because children are a big part of that book. I think I like to write about fear, and obviously when you have kids, one of the big fears is them going missing, and that's like quite a tropey sort of thing, but I think it's good, and it will pull at the heart of anyone, and whether you have kids or not. And I remember taking my son to a fairground when he was about 3 or 4, and we were in the big fun house, like climbing around the fun house. And I looked around and he wasn't there. And the fear that gripped me in that second, and I was shouting his name, and this bloke turns up to me and he goes, "It's all right, mate, it's just over there." But I was, and he was just round the corner, and he was like, "What's the matter, Dad?" And I was like, "Oh, nothing, it's fine." You know, but that's genuine fear, and yeah. So I think he was. Yeah. I'm always very curious about how you break down the chapters, because you've changed that too. In the later ones, you've put more in. More chapters. Yeah, because in the earlier ones, there's only the episodes they were hour-long chapters on the audiobook. Mm-hmm. You've broken it down more in the later ones. Yeah, I wanted to put more. I think, as I say, the first one was such an experiment. Originally, when I wrote them, they didn't have anything in between the episodes. So each episode was just joined to each other. And now I feel I've got a bit more scope to put stuff inside between them. So obviously in Beast, we had the transcripts of the vlogger from YouTube. And in Deity, we have the interview with Zach Crystal as well. It's just that way of kind of breaking the, I don't want to say monotony, but you know what I mean? Like just breaking it up a little bit and being that place to add a little bit more to make the episodes more exciting. Yeah, because the earlier books, because they were in hour-long chunks, it was more like listening to traditional podcast, I would say. Yeah, and I think I kind of wanted to get away from that a little bit. I wanted them to be a podcast, but again, like what you asked before, I kind of keep on challenging myself. I keep on to challenge myself more and more and make it better and make it a bit more. There's more to it, you know? Yeah, we were talking about narration earlier, but in all your audiobooks, each character's got a different narrator in, and you've been involved in narration too. How important is it do you listen back to once it's been created? You know what? I'll admit this to you. I've never listened to them full, like all the way through.
Yeah.
What I tend to do is I'll skip through just to hear the voice, because
Yeah.
I have a very distinct voice of each character when I'm writing it. But I also know that whoever's making the audiobook won't have that same voice.
Yeah.
So I'm not a voice actor, and I have huge respect for voice actors because, I mean, I did it for a couple of hours, and I don't think I'd do it again. It was. I felt the pressure, you know. No,
Yeah.
I'm really pleased with it because for everyone who reads the books, they're going to hear those voices differently. So it's an interpretation. So it's different voices are really important, though, I think.
Because I would say your books, like nobody else's, are designed for audio.
Yeah, I mean they are based upon audio. You know, and writing them, I listened to podcasts and noted down the rhythms of when the narrator would come in, when other people would be interviewed, that sort of thing. So it's very much catered to audio. I think you're correct.
With that in mind, do you write the dialogue any differently to bring that across?
The dialogue, weirdly, when I first started writing, dialogue was my least favorite thing to write. I thought I was quite poor at it. So it's weird how this has now become a thing. No, the dialogue, I hear it. Oh, it sounds really pretentious, but it's true. I kind of have to hear it in my head and I write it down as I hear it. So the initial drafts are very often very garbled and they have to be cleaned up quite a lot. And there's always that sort of bit of back and forth with the editor where it's almost, I'll put repetition in there because that's naturally how people speak. But also at the same time, I have to be aware that when people are reading it, they don't need to hear ums and ahs and buts and likes and that sort of thing. So it's a really hard balance.
Yeah, I can understand that entirely because I dictate my my reviews, and I do when I have to use dictaphone to do one of them because one of my assistants is dyslexic, so I record it the previous day, and then it goes through about 8 drafts when I do a review.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you still have to maintain. I guess, do you find it difficult to maintain your voice once it's been all edited and all the repetitions cut out?
Yeah, because it can change depending on the amount of the amount of full stops and commas in there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think it's probably about the same. I think we're working in a similar sort of way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really weird to try and explain to people how complicated it is. But I'm doing a creative writing course at the moment, and it's taken 5 years for the opening of my book. How long did it take you to do your opening for 6 stories?
Openings. Well, the books don't actually take that long to write in initial drafts. It's the editing and the changes that take the longest time. The initial drafts are quite quick. I can write them in a few months, sort of thing. I mean, they're horrible. They are horrible to read. But the initial bit has to grab you. So the first little bit of any podcast, I listen to a great deal of podcasts, and I find now there's so many that if one doesn't grab me within a couple of minutes, I'll move on. So that opening has to be exciting, and it also has to sound authentic, and it has to sound like a podcast. And if it's not the intro to a podcast, the book has to start with a little tantalizing thing to draw that reader in. And that is the hardest part, I think, to draw people in.
When you're working on the first 2 books, they involve the background of teenagers a lot. The teenage voice must be difficult to try and grab hold of because once you've grown up a bit, you separate yourself from the teenage voice, because I'm trying to do that at the moment. I'm going back to most of my characters are in the student union, so I'm having to go back like 12 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I know, I hear that. And as you get older, you do feel, I mean, I was 40 this year and I thought, man, am I still going to be able to do it? But for most of my career, I've worked with young people. So I was a school teacher for a lot of years, and then I worked in pupil referral units with permanently excluded children and young people with behavioral problems. And I was a one-to-one tutor for children in the care system. So I've always been around teenagers and always worked alongside teenagers. So I feel that a bit of that gives some authenticity to it. But I also remember being a teenager myself. And I think you have to try and get yourself back into that place, because it's a very unique place being a teenager, because your brain isn't quite formed yet and you haven't kind of established who you are yet, but at the same time you very much think you know who you are, and it's a tough time. It's a really tough time, and I try and reflect that, and I hopefully get that right with the young people. But that is one of the big challenges in writing, I think.
I must admit, I did notice a change between the earlier books and then Beast, when you were talking about pupil referral units. Yeah,
they're intense places to work, because you're working with young people who have been pretty much excluded from every school they've ever been in, because of their behavioral problems. So you've got to go in with a very different attitude to going in working in a school, and I think you don't hear about these places enough. I don't think they get a reputation of being like zoos, like people say, oh, you just get chairs thrown at your head and spat on. And, I've worked there for years and nothing like that's ever happened, touch wood. But yeah, I think those places with marginalized people, it's nicer to reflect them. And I think they need to be reflected more in books.
Yeah, there's only been a few that have looked at orphanages or like young teenagers in the recent past. Someone needs to come out with another one, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I just think like young people's voices are valid, and you are learning when you're young, but also when you feel like you're being heard, I think is really important. And when you have something to relate to as well, when you're a teenager, be that a book, be that something, to be able to feel that someone gets you is dead important, I think.
Because in an earlier panel today, we had a YA panel, and I was just curious as to what books you grew up on, and were you influenced by YA yourself?
It's funny, because YA wasn't like a thing. It wasn't so much of a thing as it was now. Like, things weren't labeled as YA. I guess I grew up reading point horrors. They were my first sort of books that I liked, and everyone in school was obsessed with them. The point horror books, the R.L. Stine books, and they're wonderful. And I grew up on those. And when I'd kind of had enough of them, when it wasn't quite doing it for me, I leapt straight onto things like Stephen King and James Herbert. So it was like the old horror writers, and that sort of brought me to things like Lovecraft, Machen, Blackwood, all those sort of seminal horror authors. So for me, it was always been horror, but that's always what I've been obsessed with all my life,
Yeah, it was the Rats for me. I love James Herbert's The Rats. I mean, it's not very often you get a horror trilogy. They're not as common as you'd think. You could probably tell I'm wrong with you reading more, but yeah.
Yeah, and what a trilogy it is! What a wonderful set of books that is.
Yeah,
The Rats is that was I think reading The Rats was one of the first moments I thought, I want to do this. I think I can do this.
It's definitely kind of like really gruesome. What kind of scares you when you're reading horror?
Well, definitely not gore and that sort of thing. Like, I feel how would I say this? I think I like what you don't see. So if you're reading someone like Lovecraft or Arthur Machen, it's about what they hint at. So they always hint at something other that we're not quite sure what is there, but it is lurking within the world. There's a wonderful short story called The King in Yellow by Robert W. Chambers, and it's about this cursed play, and everyone who reads it goes insane, but you never find out what's in this play. And I think that is where horror lies. The horror lies inside us. So when I'm reading something and you see the monster, then it kills it for me. Yeah. So I like things which kind of make me frightened, that sort of pull on my insecurities, of which there are many.
Is that why you started with Scott behind a mask, so that it was hidden from the reader?
Well, the thing is, Scott was always supposed to be just a vessel. He was never supposed to be a character. I tried to write him less and less into every book, and he just kept getting pulled in. So yeah, he was going to have a mask. I just wanted his voice. But when you're writing, as you know, like, your characters do things you don't expect.
Yeah. What would you say is the most unexpected thing you've done with the book since you've been writing the series?
The most unexpected thing is it'll usually be the end. And again, I don't want to spoil any endings.
Yeah.
Changeling has probably got the biggest twist, as it were, but that was always planned from the start.
Yeah.
I think the prominence of the black-eyed kids in the second one, in Hydra, because I've been reading about black-eyed kids. I got obsessed with black-eyed kids, and I've been reading everything about them. And I thought they were going to be there sort of in the hinterland of the book, and they became a huge part of it. And I didn't really expect that to happen, but when it did, it was really fun.
Yeah, interesting. I won't say why. I'll just say, everyone, you need to read the series from start to finish, because you'll see why that's interesting if you do. Yeah, it's very difficult not to say any more than that. Yeah.
No, I'm happy with that endorsement, Alex. Alex says read the series, all of them, and they're very reasonably priced.
Karen and Amanda they are on offer quite a lot, so look out for them, and we'll put offers in the group as well.
Fantastic.
When you're reading other people, what would you say that you look for to entertain yourself?
I look for a story that hurts me. Like, I like a story that really attacks my emotions and really pulls on some deep stuff. Like, that's what I really like to read. So authors I find do that are authors like Patrick McCabe, who wrote The Butcher Boy and The Dead School. I love his work because it's sort of stream of consciousness. And Niall Griffiths is another one. They really go in dark and they go in hard, and I love that. I really love that. I love a book that when I put it down, I still think about, and it resonates with me, and it's still little passages are still going around my brain, and it's made me sad. Shuggy Bane I read recently, and that was one of those that deserved everything it got because it's so good and so brutal. And that's what I like.
Yeah, your themes yourself have got a lot darker. I would say 4 and 5 are your darkest yet, and
why? Oh, you haven't seen nothing yet.
Ooh, really intrigued now. When they were getting darker, did you find that easier or harder to write?
It wasn't really about being easy or hard. It was more about, did it feel right and did it feel true? So they definitely got darker because I think I had more confidence in what I was writing. And as I say, like, what I read is a book that I want to address, that addresses issues, that pulls on people's emotions. And I felt the more I wrote, the more confident I got to be able to do that myself. Because I think the worst thing is when you read a book and it feels a bit disingenuous, or it feels like the author's not particularly authentic about these things. And I feel like gradually I've been able to get darker because I felt like I've done it justice. And yeah, I think so.
When I was reading Deity, I was thinking, well, the theme you've chosen is very current, but it could be a bit dated in the future, because it's so current. Have you found a problem with when you're reading other people's with books that deal with current themes of the time?
It depends on the theme, I suppose. I think if a theme is universal, it can, obviously the situation can be dated, but the theme itself, the biggest theme in Deity is the idea of power and someone being elevated to an almost godlike position gives them the power to do what they like and be excused for it. And I don't think that's going to age, because there's always going to be power. There's always going to be people put on pedestals, and there's always going to be those people on pedestals able to take advantage of those below them. I don't think that's something that's going to age. And I'm not blowing my own trumpet here. I'm just saying that theme is definitely not going to end anytime soon, I don't think.
Well, I know who your influences are for the characters, and I know who I was thinking of. But given the theme, there'll be new people that pop up with the same issues all the time.
Absolutely.
Because I was thinking Michael Jackson of all things, as you know. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And, yeah.
That he was big influence. I mean, the character of Zach Crystal isn't based on any one person. It's an amalgam of those types of people who we elevate, who our society elevate to godlike status. And going to Michael Jackson, I was a big Michael Jackson fan, and I was an unashamed believer that he was innocent until I watched Leaving Neverland. And I feel terrible. I feel really bad that I would stand up and argue with people and say, no, he's nothing. He didn't do anything. I don't believe that now, but that's my personal belief. No injunction on this show is allegedly, blah blah blah.
Is that what you were channeling when you did episode 2 for Deity then?
I think so. Yeah, but what I wanted to voice in Deity wasn't more about the people who loved these people as opposed to the people themselves. So it's more about the fans, because when people like Michael Jackson, most recently Marilyn Manson, who was a big hero of mine and took me through a lot of tough years in my childhood listening to his music, and then these allegations came out about him, and that has destroyed a hero of mine. And I haven't done it. That's not my fault for liking him. That's on him. And I wanted to write, and I was really upset about that. And I believe people who come forward with allegations. And I hold the man in contempt now, and I won't listen to him again. All right, because of these allegations.
Absolutely.
And I wanted to give voice to people like me who've been seduced and have been tricked, just like the victims, but to a completely different extent. But do you know what I mean? It's the same idea of being seduced and being made to think something about someone, and it turns out it's a lie.
Yeah, because I was obsessed with Jackson, and then just after Neverland, he came out with a best hits album, and I said somebody got it me for my birthday, and I actually gave it him back. I said, I'm not going to listen to that. And
it's hard, isn't it? Because suddenly all your favourite songs take on a new context, don't they?
Definitely do. I mean, when things take on a new context for you, how does that change the tone of your writing too? Because I imagine, because you said it changed partway through Deity.
Yeah, it often I want to express anger. And I use writing to express a lot of negative emotions. So yeah, it did, and it was hard because I had to then write about a character that had to have traits to him that people could like. It's very easy to just write a villain, all right, because you can sit and go, well, they're a villain, all right. What's harder is to write someone who you can go, oh, well, actually, maybe he was okay. And that's what I wanted to do to the reader in Deity. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but the Deity brings up the question of Zach Crystal. Is he innocent? Is he not? He's actually not that horrible. And I wanted that. I thought that was really important to make him believable enough that people could hang their hook on him if they wanted to.
Yeah, I think that's why it's so important to read the series, because you'll understand the layers and why it works then.
Yeah, well, hopefully, I try and do that. Each book stands alone, but there is little undercurrents that do go through the series, correct? You
definitely can read them on their own, but if you read them together, it works better.
For sure.
Is there any author that you'd say that you would do the same thing with?
That I do. Sorry,
that had the same thing with, that you could read on their own, but if you read them together, it works best.
You know what? I think if you read Stephen King's Dark Tower series, and then read all his other books, what I love so much about that, and that was a big influence actually, is the idea that there's always little nods to it, and there's always little things that can connect to the Dark Tower. And the Dark Tower is like a vein that runs through all of Stephen King's stuff. And I really like that, because you can read it, for example, and it's wonderful on its own. Then you can read the Dark Tower, and then you can read it and go, oh. And I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, because I must admit, I haven't read many Stephen Kings, but I've read The Shining, and I've also read the prison one with Morgan Freeman, and trying to think of it now.
The Green Mile?
Yeah.
Shawshank Redemption, sorry.
Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile. I've read both of those.
Well, the Shawshank Redemption was a short story, wasn't it? And then it got turned into a movie, and there's loads of them, like Candyman as well. That was a little short story by Clive Barker.
Have you ever written short stories yourself?
Yeah, that's where I started. I'm notoriously bad for finishing stuff. When I'm writing, I really want to get to the end quick. And so I kind of cut my teeth on short stories, and I've got a lot of those sort of published in little horror magazines before I even really attempted a novel. Yeah.
I mean, the only one I've finished is a 20,000 word novella, and it's fully finished, but I just can't self-publish it. I just decided I just couldn't do that. So I waited to get an agent before I put it out, but I've been sending it to a few people. And short stories are such hard to sell, harder than full. When you were starting out, did you find that a challenge as well, or?
Well, I sent a lot of short stories. There's a lot of them go to little presses, little indie presses and internet publications will put out short stories. And I specifically looked for, there's a website called The Horror Tree, where you can find who's wanting short stories for anthologies. So there's a lot of anthologies with my older stories in. So I think if you search me up on Amazon, you'll be able to find them and all. I'm proud of everyone. I mean, they're older than the 6-story series, but I was proud of them, and they're kind of all out horror. But it was almost like they were the practice. You know, I never troubled agents with those, because I was kind of trying to get the momentum rolling of getting things published while I wrote a novel in the background, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, that's what I've started doing. I mean, they are completely different worlds, aren't they? And when did you realise you got the voice that you've now developed?
That's only quite recently, I feel. I think it takes a long time I can't speak for anyone else, but it's certainly taken me quite a while to really find my voice and be confident with it. And I've got a lot of novels written that aren't particularly good when I was trying to, and haven't been published from when I was trying to find my voice. And I think that's really important, because that's the only way you can find your voice as a writer, is by writing loads and writing a lot of crap. You know?
Now you've found your voice and stuck with the series, because I know 6 Stories wasn't initially supposed to be a series. Have you got any plans to write a standalone?
Yes. I have several. I've got a few. I've got a couple of standalones that are being polished, let's say. And we'll see what happens there.
Because the standalone gives you options that a series can't.
Absolutely. I've got because I've always got ideas. There's always something I want to start, and I've kind of got 2 things at the minute. So I've always got about 3 or 4 things going on, which will be in note form. Some of them have been started. Some of them are being edited. Yeah. So there's a lot of new stuff going on.
Since you've been published by Aranda, is there anybody that they also published that you would like to work on, do a double project on?
I've always thought about doing collaboration, but and I like the idea of it. I think Orenda have some absolutely wonderful authors. It's really hard to pick, because a lot of the authors I get on with on a personal level, and a lot of the authors I really admire, and I kind of, it's a really, really tough question, that, and it would really take a lot of thought, because the Orenda have absolutely beautiful writers and such a variety as well, that I would more like someone to almost pick it for me. Someone would say, you would work well with them, and then let's get together and see what happens.
I was thinking a Will Carver mashup would be great.
That'd be nice. Will and I play Fortnite together online quite a lot, so maybe we could write about that.
Have you ever considered writing about the devil or anything like that?
Well, I think you might need to wait for the 6 Stories 6.
Yeah, that sounds very intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
How many books have you got in the arc, or is that a difficult question to ask?
That I kind of only look at sort of the next thing, and it's very much about waiting until an idea hits. So I've been lucky in that ideas have been, for 6 stories, have been flowing. But what I'm very conscious of is burnout with these sorts of things. And also, I don't want readers to get fed up. Here comes another 6 stories, here comes another 6 stories. I think I want to wait until I feel totally confident in an idea. So it's always a question that's never got a clear answer. There will be stuff, there will be ideas coming for all sorts of different things. But let's see what happens.
Because when I first read Changeling, that was put up for the Theakston's Prize, and it was on the, I can't remember whether it's short or long listed.
It was long listed.
What was that like?
That was like I was I'm still speechless a couple of years on. I just never expected anything from me could get there. Do you know what I mean? So to be long listed was phenomenal, and I was like, well, I'm just grateful to be long listed. And then when the shortlist came out, I was like, damn. Of course. But no, it was a genuine honor, and it really gave us a lot of confidence, and it gave us a lot of I felt the love, and that was nice. It was nice. I felt appreciated,
because it's so difficult for to choose who's going to be on the list.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, I've not found it easy.
No, and I guess you then having to battle with everyone else's opinion as well.
Yeah, it's not very, especially when there's so many books out there. Is there anyone that you've read in the recent past that might be coming up in 2022 that you recommend to people?
Oh, there's one just come out called The Lighthouse Witches by C.J. Cook, and she's I think one of my favorite authors at the minute. And the new Catriona Award called Sundial, that is phenomenal. She's a wonderful writer, and she's one of those who, again, is deserved of all the accolades she's getting. Joe Hill and Stephen King are speaking about Catriona, and fully deserved. Magnificent writer. C.J. Cook, Catriona Award. I'd recommend them to anyone. I
must admit, when I was interviewing Catriona about the last one, it was the hardest interview I've ever done, not to reveal the solution to that.
Absolutely, and I think it's wonderful because everyone talks. You see it everywhere, but no one gives anything away, and I like that. I really like that, and what a book to be able to do that, and it's something very, very special.
I think it reminds me of the mousetrap policy when people say when you go to the mousetrap and they say don't say the solution.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's just so cool. And can you imagine the moment she had that idea?
So unique. When you were reading those kind of books, what would you say was the one that shocked you the most for those kind of solutions? Because they are different to yours.
Yeah, totally. I'm really, really bad at guessing what's going to happen and guessing twists and that sort of that. Like, I'm not a detective. You know, some readers are really good at that, and they'll spot the twist and they'll see the foreshadowing and they go, "Oh, well, I thought that." Like, I'm terrible at that. So every book with a twist or every book with anything like that is revelatory to me, unfortunately.
Yeah, and because foreshadowing is so difficult to do with like the 6-story method, because you're doing like separate episodes and you don't want to give too much away.
Yeah, and you've always got, you know, the knowledge that someone's going to get it or someone's going to think it's obvious. But yeah, it is hard, and sometimes you have to be a little bit obvious, or sometimes you have to give the reader something. I mean, I would never get it. That's the thing. So I do try and leave little clues lying around. I also leave little Easter eggs and little. So what I would suggest, Alex, is you go back to Changeling and you look at the first letter of each of the interim chapters between episodes.
Yeah.
And see what that spells out. So there you go.
Yeah, I'll have to get a book out from the library and see me filming that one. I'll go to get like the library and do it. Yeah.
No one has actually done that yet, or if they have, I don't know about it.
Well, I should be the first to do it then.
Do it.
If no one's going to watch this and then do it before me.
There you go. So I tell you what, Alex. Here's a little thing you can put up. If someone tells me what the hidden message of the first person who tweets me and tells me what that hidden message is, I'll send them a book. How about that?
That sounds like a great thing. Yeah.
Let's do it. Okay, so just give me a tweet with the little Easter egg, that hidden changeling. First person to do it, you'll get a signed copy of Changeling. How about that?
Yeah. It's so difficult to do that kind of thing. When did that idea first come? Was that part way, or did you know you were doing it when you were writing?
To do the Easter egg.
Yeah.
Oh, I love stuff like that. My books are full of things like that. Every book has little tributes to something or names or something. There's usually a Lovecraft reference in every single book somewhere. Because it's like what I'm reading and what I'm enjoying and what I'm thinking about kind of bleeds through into my writing. So I always put something in there and think, I wonder if someone will spot that. Or sometimes it's the name of my friends, someone I used to know. I'll throw them in there. I just think it's fun.
With you having a lot of teenagers in your books, have your friends said, "Is that me?"
Yeah, it was the first one actually, because it was I was part of a group very similar to what is called Rangers in the book.
Yeah,
and there was. It's very close to the bone, I have to say. That no one's based on anyone in particular. They're kind of amalgams of different people. So I had a few people saying to me, was I sort of in there? And I'd say a bit of you was in there. I'd say I took a bit of you and I mixed it with someone else and then threw in some stuff from my own brain. So yeah, just in the first one there.
Yeah, because it did remind me a lot of Scouts and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you're young and those sorts of groups are quite important, and and there's a lot of drama and that sort of thing. I thought I'd sort of use that.
Did groups of teenagers, did they just automatically lead to the episodic method of 6 stories? You think?
No, it was the idea of the episodes came before anything. I thought, let's write a book in the style of a true crime podcast where you hear, I mean, the trope of writing the same story from different perspectives isn't new, but the podcast is, so it's almost like telling one of those kind of stories. But then with a podcast, you can kind of then put teasers in for the next episode, and that at the end of the series there has to be some kind of resolution, be it a nice one, a nasty one, or an indifferent one. The story has to be tied up somehow.
I would say Beast was your best one for that. I mean, what made you decide to open that with a fireman?
Well, Beast was one of my favorites to write, actually. why did I want to write a fireman? I kind of wanted to be right there, ground zero. I had this, I came up with the idea of Beast sitting on a train, sort of staring out at the landscape, and the town of Ergoth with the vampire tower just came very, very suddenly. And it's hard to kind of say how it came, but it came to me. And I thought, well, let's start in the aftermath of that, because there's nothing more sort of powerful than the sort of burned tower, and we know someone's died in there, and that's where we start. And often with a murder case, you start with the aftermath.
Yeah, the importance of location was key in that one, because for the first time Scott comes out from the shadows and he starts interviewing on location. Was that it was different again? Did that mean that you had to change the style a bit?
A little bit. I wanted to really capture this town I'd invented, and I thought it would change. You know what I said before about just changing things up slightly, just giving a little bit more or a little bit less, or putting it in a different direction. I thought, why can't you go on location? I thought, as the series has progressed and my confidence in writing it's got more, Scott's confidence as a podcaster has almost got a bit more as well. It was fun because I could make it even darker, and that was nice to do.
Yeah. When you were doing Beast, I mean, this is probably as close to video blogging as I'm going to get. So, how did you get inside the head of the video blogger?
Oh, that was really hard because, like, I don't watch any of that sort of thing, so I don't get it. I'm too old. It's not for me, right? So I'm not going to have a go at it. But it's not for me. Like, it's not aimed at me. It's not for me. So I thought, well, I'm gonna have to watch some of these bloggers to see what it's about. And like, I didn't get it because it was people going, "Hi guys, this is what I bought from the shop, and I got this, and I got that." And I thought, what? Like for me, I just had no idea why anyone would want to watch that. And I'm not just being facetious. I genuinely have no clue about why that's entertaining, but that's because it's not for me. So I did have to watch a lot of it, and it's quite easy to pick up on the sort of the cues and the different styles of voice those people use. It was quite a challenge. But let's just say I won't be watching any more of those videos.
Yeah, I mean, there was quite important to come up with all the different challenges, because at the time you got the water bucket challenge, because I was thinking there was that mid noughties, or have I got lost time scale? I'm getting a bit old now as well.
Oh, the ice bucket challenge. Well,
yeah,
like that. Yeah, it was based on the sort, because I know, again, they're not for me, but I've never really understood things like that. I got the whole giving to charity thing, but I just don't understand why you need to do a video of yourself doing it. And when I wrote Beast, I wanted to go into that, into my ignorance of it, and my kind of, as an older man, kind of going, I don't understand this. Why are young people doing this? It makes no sense. And I kind of wanted to go into that and have a look at why people are doing things like that, why people need likes, and why people need validation on the internet. And I thought that was quite a serious issue. And going back to that idea of issues, I kind of started realizing as I was writing Beast that it was about these issues, and what is it that's empty in someone that means they need validation online? Why do they need to put a photo of themselves up online? I've never understood that.
Yeah.
And think, well, what is it that's missing in you that means you need someone to click like? And I thought that's quite an interesting topic.
I mean, the issue of celebrity and power is really important in deity. It's in some of your earlier books too. Especially with how dark deity gets. I mean, how has the reflection of that changed with the different books?
I think I'm sort of going a bit deeper into these things a bit more. I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to come at them, ironically, from different angles. And I don't want to go in and write a book which is altogether damning of something. So, for example, the video blogging, that sort of thing, it's very easy to go into a book like that and go, well, all video bloggers are stupid. I don't get it, so they're idiots. And it's like, well, that's not really how the world works. So when I go into an issue, I do want to look at it from loads and loads, as many angles as I can to try and understand the different ways in it. And I think the darker the issue gets, the more you have to try your best to understand it.
Have you had any conversations with people that have read it that have said it reflects their experiences? Because Deities covers something that's very current, and I'm thinking if someone's reading it and they've gone through that, it must be kind of a bit of a kind of shock, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's based in reality. Luckily, no one I've spoken to has spoken to me about Deity, but Changeling, I've had a lot of people say to me that they were in a similar coercive, controlling situation.
Yeah.
It's actually based on an amalgam of situations from a few people very, very close to me. And I made the character in there who is the sort of the controller, the coercive, the evil character, an amalgam of those people's experiences. And I've had a few, and it's such a sensitive subject that I really tried hard to be sensitive with it. And the same with Deity as well, that these subjects are so sensitive that, I mean, the worst would be someone reading it and thinking that I was being flippant or being disrespectful, and I really hope I haven't. And if I have, it's never been an intention, you know. So luckily not yet, but you never know. You never know. Often people don't want to say because of the shame and the stigma.
Well, I think it's been very, very, very difficult to be flippant with six stories because you look at it from all the different angles. When deciding on the angles, is there any that you've thrown out that you might bring back in a later one?
Are you talking about like various people?
Various people, or just kind of angles, which meant that you've thrown out complete stories because you can't use the angle you need to.
Yeah, totally. Sometimes I'll rewrite an entire episode when we come to editing because it just doesn't quite land right, or I'll have to check. Like in the latest one I've just finished, I had to change someone's view of something had to change midway through the episode, and I had to kind of go back and repair all that. But it's often like 99.99% of the time that makes it better. Because because weirdly it's someone else's angle said, well, maybe you could do that. And I thought, oh, okay. So I'm always kind of open to editing and open to suggestions. So I'll go back and if it works for me, then yeah. So loads of stuff gets binned, loads of stuff gets changed. I'll tell you what gets binned the most, and that's the stuff between the episodes. That's the hardest thing I find.
Yeah.
So sometimes I wanted to write a King in Yellow style cursed folk story in one of them, and it was terrible. So we got rid of it.
Because I love the inter-episode stuff with Hyde, because it's the first time you did it, and it was just like I'd read other people doing it, and I didn't even realize that's what you were doing until you got to the end and thought, oh my god, yeah.
There you go, Easter eggs.
Yeah, it's been such a great hour speaking to you about all the books, and I can't wait for the next one. Have you got any idea when the release date is?
I should be able to tell you this straight away. I think it's coming out mid-November, toward the end of November on ebook, and I think January for the paperback. I'm not sure about the audiobook.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's next month will be the ebook. The proofs will be going out soon, I believe. Well,
I shall have a word with Isis. And if you've not done the audiobook yet, I would love to come down and see one being recorded. I know that's been a bit cheeky, but yeah.
You know what? It's not that exciting. I thought it was going to be dead exciting, and it isn't. You just sit in a room, and I'll tell you what happened. So I sat in the studio with a pair of headphones on, and I suddenly forgot how to pronounce very easy words. So I had a producer in one ear, and I was reading, and for some reason I forgot how to pronounce irrevocably. And I kept saying it wrong, and she kept saying it right to me, and so I'd do the sentence again, and I was like, "Oh no, I'm really bad at. I'm so sorry. I'm so bad at this." And that is the recording of an audiobook. It's someone if it's the author, they're sitting there going, But I imagine when it's a professional voice actor, they are a hell of a lot better than me.
It's just so different to think about the audio thing. What was the hardest thing about recording your own voice on that audiobook?
Oh man, like hoping it wasn't rubbish. Like I lost confidence a bit the way and going, does this sound terrible? Should they have got someone better in to do this? I think that, and I've listened to it back, I think all for about 30 seconds because I don't want to hear my voice.
Well, thank you so much. And sorry it was so awkward to start, everybody. Thank you for staying a little bit longer too.
Well, thank you, Alex, for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No problem at all. And we love reading the rest of your books.
Thank you.
Well, bye.